There has been a massive boom in off-road riding over the last few years. Mountain biking is simply massive, and ultimately it'll lead to fitter people, having more fun in the woods, and of course the options for coffee, cake and fancy riding gear. However, it has impacted where and how we ride. Today, we're going to have a look at the UK example of this explosion in off-road riding and its impact in the woods and how we as mountain bikers can safeguard its future. Today, I've got some new riding mates, and from Forestry England, I'm joined by Dawn Thompson, who's the head of recreation and engagement, and Dan Weston, who is the mountain bike ranger. Dawn, it's really kicked off the last few years with mountain bike action, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we've seen a boom over the last sort of couple of years of more and more people getting on bikes, using the trails that we've got, which is absolutely great. You know, we want people to get out and about and enjoy the fantastic woodlands and forests that we've got. But we have also seen an increase in the number of riders kind of venturing onto and building unauthorised trails as well, which does cause us issues.
And a significant amount of unauthorised trails, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen the trail network in terms of unauthorised trails just explode.
Yeah, so we need to tackle some of the issues surrounding unauthorised trails, and as I mentioned, how we as mountain bikers can make sure the future is safe for us. Okay, folks, let's begin with some definitions. Now, obviously, we can only use a UK example here, but we're really eager for you guys to get in touch of what's happening globally with your trail network. Dawn, wild, illegal, unauthorised, give us some idea here what we're talking about.
Yeah, so we do have a authorised network, and that's a network that we design, we construct it, we grade it, and obviously we inspect and we maintain it as well to make sure it's safe. And the grading's there so that you can ride within your limit, so you can choose a trail that's applicable to your skill level, and that ranges from kind of green level trails, family cycle trails, through to blue, red, and we're stood here at the top of a 3-dot downhill track.
Yeah, this is surface, it's waymarked, and if you're new to the area, you can actually follow the trail. It's very easy to follow down the hill. There's no case for going the wrong way, is there?
Yeah.
However, we have got over here something different, and it's very close to that trail. So you could think, well, you know, we could just pop down here, couldn't we? Really?
Yeah.
But this is a very different cup of tea down here, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can see we've come past the start of a 3-dot downhill track, and immediately we're in now to an unauthorised trail. So this is not part of our authorised trail network. It's not part of that 3-dot downhill track, but you can see we've done a very short walk, and it's very easy to find yourself on something is pretty full on. Yeah, absolutely. So, and we haven't designed this, we haven't constructed it, we don't inspect it, and we don't maintain it. So, you know, there's a lot of rocks down there. Some of them could be loose. You could find yourself way above your skill level quite quickly.
Yeah.
And those trails are quite concerning to us in terms of our management and making sure that people are safe, because we want people to be safe.
Especially in an area so well used as this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, the rules on where you can ride do vary worldwide, but here in the Forest of Dean, Forestry England actually tolerate riding on unauthorised trails, but with some very important guidelines, right, Don?
Yeah, absolutely. Unauthorised trails can range from anything, from the kind of the gnarly kind of trail that we've seen over there.
Gnarly,
it was pretty gnarly. Yeah. To something like this. So this we would class as a desire line.
Why do you call them desire lines?
So it's called a desire line basically because it's been...
I love this trail!
Yeah, I desire it. It's been ridden, it's been walked over a number of years probably, and it's just a naturally occurring trail. No one's bought a spade and created this trail. It's just naturally occurring. So desire lines, natural trails, they're just things that are part of the landscape here. And we do tolerate some riding on those trails.
But they're not protected, are they?
But they're not protected, no. Yeah. So obviously, you know, Forest of Dean is a working forest, so we do extract timber. So when that happens, we wouldn't protect a trail like this in the same way that we would with our authorised trail network. So we wouldn't come back and put this back.
Yeah. But a trail like this, there's no 3-foot high berms, there's no borrow pits, and we'll go on to borrow pits a little bit later. It's pretty simple. It's deer tracks, badger tracks, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's the construction that you know, there's zero tolerance to construction. You know, it's illegal to come in the forest and dig your own trail.
Shall we go and have a look at some examples of that then?
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got to be honest, that natural, wild, unauthorized, illegal trail was pretty cool, but it did change quite dramatically when we got to this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's yeah. So this is an example of something someone's constructed, quite a significant drop, not constructed very well either. It's quite unstable, and it's obviously not doing the tree any favours either. So you've come down what is quite sort of a mellow trail to be faced with something like this. So when we talked earlier about the grading and the skill level, you know, someone could quite easily find themselves stumbling across something like this, which is why we just cannot have construction.
And I don't think it's just the riding, Dawn. I think it's the fact about, you know, that is going to fall apart, and it could fall apart while someone's riding it.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's no future in this whatsoever, I don't think, is there? I mean,
yeah. So yeah, it comes back to that safety message again.
Yeah.
You know, the authorised trails, we not only build and construct them, but we inspect them and we maintain them, make sure that anything that's constructed is safe to ride. Yeah,
so there you go, folks. You know, when we talk, it's really cool that Forestry England are tolerating us riding unauthorised trails. We need to respect the rules within that, and you know, piling a load of logs up against a tree with a bit of dirt just doesn't cut it, does it?
No.
That was quite definitive. Dawn, this is crazy. You've got a trail which is exiting on, it's a pretty busy road, right?
Yeah, absolutely, really busy road.
So, you know, when people build wild trails, they need to think of the safety of other people, because who might not know the trail, right? I mean, this is madness, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, absolute madness. First, don't build a wild trail. No building, Steve.
Point at me.
but secondly, yeah, I mean, exiting onto a really, really fast road with lots of traffic. It's.
I'm a bit worried about Jack actually even standing there, let alone coming out on a bike.
Yeah.
There you go, ambulance. Definitely an ambulance. Thing is, it's not just exiting onto tarmac roads. It's when you've got wild trails which cross forestry roads, and there may be timber extraction going on there.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you get a track which is crossing at a speed, that's pretty dangerous, isn't it? Yeah,
crossing a forest road, it could be a timber lorry, it could be somebody walking, it could be, you know, a family walking along there, riding bikes, etc. So, you know, it's a big safety issue.
Yeah, for sure. Dan, this is quite a significant construction here. I mean, it must have taken, whoever built it, 2-3 weeks to what ultimately is a feature which doesn't work. I mean, I could go on. It's badly drained, it's got no flow to it, and as you can see, it's just been forgotten, hasn't it? But it's not just the fact that it's badly made, there's other knock-on effects to it as well, isn't there?
Yeah, aside from the work that's gone into it, obviously you can see that we've got at least two, maybe three borrow pits that are big holes in the ground that can...
Quite big holes in the ground.
Taking a lot of work to dig them out, and it's, you know, they're a hazard for wildlife and for forestry operations when they come in and work in these areas. Yeah. These trails are fairly close to our authorised trails, so as unauthorised trails we don't inspect or maintain them, and a visitor could quite unknowingly come across something like this, and if they're not familiar with our authorised trail network, then they could drop into this, and as you said, they're not great quality. They're not even reasonable quality.
And it's the fact that this has been forgotten, and we see this, don't we? We see people building trails, not getting them right, and then moving on to another area, and you know, it just creates a scar in a beautiful woodland, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and this is pretty indicative of most of the sort of trails, built trails that we find like this.
Now, Dan, this is an official forestry trail, but it's a kind of natural trail, isn't it?
Yep, it is.
And it proves that you don't need surfacing, you don't need to cut any roots out. And I remember riding this track 22, 23 years ago, and it really has stood the test of time to a certain extent. I mean, the trail did actually used to go around the tree here, and there was a reason for that, because it gave you a good open exit to the corner, good flow. But people know better, don't they? They want to cut the corner. How many times you see this? You must see it every day.
I think Yeah, I think all our trails have sections like this, and as you can see from there, the erosion that it causes because it's in the wrong place, it's on the wrong line. You've got more braking, and then it sets you up incorrectly for the next section. And all the bits like this do, it confuses riders because they're not sure which line to take, which spoils their ride or makes them slow down or have an accident. And it takes our time away from maintaining what should be there and having to fix or remove stuff like this, where what we want to be doing, what we should be doing is concentrating on the lines that were designed and built, and those are the ones that we should be spending our time and money maintaining.
Yeah, for sure. And it's also caused erosion, and that causes an added problem for you, doesn't it?
Yeah, as you can see further on down, as you go down past this corner, you end up with 3 or 4 different lines, and it just causes more wear and tear on the ground and on the trees. I
think natural trails are cool as long as you know how to build them.
Yeah, it's not as easy as just scratching a line in the ground.
And this proves this is a bad example of a natural trail.
And this one is a good example of water as well. They're thinking about where the water's going to go, because this is probably been added to by the amount of water that will be flowing up there, whereas the correct line is going to shed that water.
And absolutely no problems whatsoever.
It's not going to collect, and it's not going to wear the trail away.
And all the routes intact, Dan, from 23 years of riding.
Yeah.
Great, isn't it?
Yeah.
This trail has been removed. I have to say, it's quite a good trail too.
Yeah.
But why is the question?
Well, so we stood on one of our authorised downhill trails here. So again, someone could be following the authorised downhill trail and take this spur off and very quickly find themselves on an unauthorised trail, which wasn't greatly built. So it's the reason why we've removed this trail.
And I guess there's an expectancy from a rider who's going down a trail which has been wave marked at the start. And I guess what you're saying is this is now interfering with this.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and causes safety issues and.
Yeah, but the thing is, guys, it's easy for you to be seen as the trail police, but then that's not quite true, is it? Because the Dean Trail Volunteers actually build trails like that in this forestry block, don't they?
Yes, they do, and they do a lot of really, really good work, and we appreciate people like to build, and that's why we have the Dean Trail Volunteers. So, you know, anybody that wants to get into building does have an opportunity to do that by joining that volunteer group and actually helping to build new trails, maintain these existing trails, rather than putting their effort into constructing something that's unauthorised. Yeah, and when we say unauthorised, just doing stuff without there needs to be a planning aspect to trails, because you know, as we saw with Dan a minute ago, when things become 1 line to 3 lines to 5 lines, it actually ruins your ride, doesn't it? You kind of, which way do I go? And you know, you want to find the flow, don't you, really, of a trail? Yeah, absolutely, and that's why we maintain the authorised trail network to ensure that it's fun and you know it keeps its flow, and we don't get to a position where we've got multiple lines and confusion for the rider. We've been chatting. Now, it's come across to me now that I'm getting the message that it's okay to ride unauthorised trails, but how do you actually manage them? Well, in terms of management, we look at various different criteria. So obviously construction is a big one for us. That's not tolerated. So anything that anybody has taken a spade to, has built a wooden timber structure, a drop-off, etc., crafted a berm, is not tolerated. You know, I say it's breaking a bylaw. Anything that's in a protected area, so where we've got a nature reserve or a SSSI or something like that, it's designated, zero riding in there, whether that's natural trail or constructed. So they're kind of the red parameters, and anything that intersects with a protected species as well, that would be a kind of a red. Then we've got various different grades of like amber and green. So an amber trail, we might be seeing a trail that comes down onto a forest road where there might be other users. Maybe like this could be an amber trail, couldn't it? Yeah, something like this. It comes up onto a forest road, there might be other users. We need to look at the safety aspect of that trail. And this to point out why this might be amber is the fact that the roots have not been cut out, folks. And this is a natural trail. You know, we would class this as a natural trail. It's naturally occurring. No one's built this trail, so therefore it'd fall into an amber. It's just been ridden, isn't it? It's just been ridden, and then there would be green level trails where they're in areas where there's not much usage from other user groups, you know, like walkers or runners or horse riders, etc. So there's various different parameters that we apply to manage the trails But an important point is that none of it is protected. So, if we've got forest operations going on in the area, they won't come back and put the trail back. Once it's gone, it's gone. We don't protect unauthorised trails.
Well, I've got to say that was a particularly good unauthorised trail. But honestly, talking about earlier, the amount of trail building has been massive in the last few years, isn't it? It's like off the charts.
Yeah.
But do you think, you see people building trails where they shouldn't be. It's just a lack of knowledge, isn't it, really?
It is a lack of knowledge and understanding, and with the increase in building and riding, we've also seen an increase in complaints as well, verbal abuse, just unsafe riding as well, and just general kind of littering and things like that going. You say the verbal abuse, like in the village I live in, and we built some unauthorised trails, but we had some agreements with some of the locals in terms of parking. We never used to park, we never used to uplift, all that. And people coming in from the outside might not understand the local dynamic as well, might they? Yeah, so, before the pandemic and before Strava and the likes of those mapping tools, a lot of the trails were ridden by locals. Yeah. And there was that kind of local understanding, but now obviously we've got more and more people coming and wanting to ride those types of trails, and they don't necessarily have that understanding and knowledge of the local area. Yeah, sure. Now, we've just been in the bike park zone. When you move out that zone, it becomes a bit more different, doesn't it, really? Yeah, it does, and there's a lot more to think about as well in terms of the impact on the environment. Obviously it is a working forest, and we've got areas that we fell trees, but we also replant as well. And riding through newly planted sites is just, it's a big no-no, and it impacts on the forest future and the environment and things like that. I think maybe we should go and talk ecology next. Yeah, absolutely. And you've got a colleague, haven't you? Yes. To talk that very subject. Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to head out of the bike park and into the big wide woods. Now, we've just come out of a designated mountain bike zone into the wider woodland, and I just want to point out the things we're talking about today apply worldwide, not just to here in the Forest of Dean. Now joined by Kate Wollen, who's the assistant ecologist for Forestry England. Kate, we're on the boundary of a nature reserve, not just a nature reserve, is it?
No, it isn't, no. So this is the RSPB Nags Head Nature Reserve, but it's also a site of special scientific interest. So it's a really rich wildlife area, also being managed by the RSPB. It's very special for the nesting birds that are here, but all the flora and the fauna. It's a wonderful place, and we've got to treat it with respect, whether you're walking or cycling. Yeah. Or visiting it in any capacity. Yeah, so it's very much a sort of no-go zone as far as cycling wherever you want in that area, right? Yes, that's right, yes. So this has got signs on the boundaries asking you not to cycle in the woods, but not all areas are as obvious as that, which is why you need to be aware of where you are and what you're cycling on. So by sticking to your cycling to the hard stone tracks or designated cycle routes, you know that you can cycle safely without disturbing species. Yeah. So we were with Dan earlier, and we came across these mines, and Dan, being the cycle ranger, said, well, you can't go building tracks here because there might be collapse and stuff like that, but there's other stuff going on as well, isn't there? Oh, very much so. I mean, the mines, just last week I was sent a lovely video of a bat flying into a mine and an otter going into the same mine. And that just shows, that's just a flavour of the wildlife that will use these mines. So both bats and otters, they're European protected species, they're highly protected. So to disturb in any way that mine, you would be, A, committing an offence, and B, it's morally wrong to disturb any wildlife. Yeah, so that's below ground, and you could maybe sometimes forgive people thinking, oh, it's just a hole in the ground, but if you go constructing things, say, I don't know, maybe just under this tree here, people need to be aware there's stuff going on in the canopy as well, isn't there? Yes, going under it. It's really important, isn't it, for there to be woodland zones which are mountain bike no-go zones, because it can get carried away, can it, really? Yeah, it can. And we've had instances where, we have a lot of badgers in the forest. Badgers make sets in the ground. Those sets can have, nice slopes and lumpy bumps, and people have in the past thought, oh, they look nice to ride your bike over, bit of fun. But, that is a badger's home. There could be up to, a dozen or so badgers living there, and you riding over that, the vibrations, what have you, can really upset the animals.
So how serious is it then if you go building a track through a badger set?
That's very serious. Right. Badgers are protected by law, so that would
so
very
that's
much involve.
job, right?
Yes, it would be.
Okay.
Yes.
What we're seeing a lot of with mountain bikers in the last few years is there's a line down the track and people want to make the fastest line down there. So people are cutting corners. Now, you mentioned me a minute ago about a plant here, right? Is it this
yes,
right here?
Yes, the wood spurge.
So, I would never have known this. For those of you who are thinking, yeah, cut this corner off, tell me about this plant here.
Yeah, so this wood spurge here, that's the flowers going over a bit now. Here's the leaves of it. So that's just one of the many plants in the forest that are very valuable for the woodland wildlife that we have here. That's actually the food plant of a really rare moth. But most of the native woodland flora we have here are actually useful and, very much part of the food chain of the native wildlife that we have here. So if you start cutting the corner off and going round there, you might think it's just you doing it.
Yeah.
But it isn't just you. If you do it, somebody else will do it.
And soon it'll be a massive line, yeah.
And you'll be destroying that food for certain species. So you add up all the amounts of corners that are cut.
Yeah.
And that ends up to being a lot of hectares of damaged habitat.
Exactly. So Kate, what would you say the message you give mountain bikers in general when they're out and about in the woodland? It's about understanding the zones, right?
It is, yes. If you cycle in areas that are designated for mountain biking, in the Forest of Dean, we've got the whole of Sallow Valleys. You know that you will be safe. You won't be disturbing things by going in those areas. If you cycle on the hard stone forest roads, you'll also be safe because those are well-used tracks. They're hard stone. They haven't got any flora on them. So you won't be disturbing things. Yeah. Those are the areas. And also to be aware because, there might be certain times when, say in Sallow Valleys where something might be happening. There might be a bird nesting there that you don't want to disturb. So just look out for the signs. And like when you come up this path here, look out for the signs that say no cycling as well. So
when it comes, this is a very key point here, what's the message if you come across a deer track in a nature reserve? I think maybe... Don't go on it. That is for the wildlife. Well, it's two things, isn't it? You shouldn't be maybe cycling in the nature reserve in the first place and then, you're riding on an unauthorized trail as well. So there's a double layer there, isn't there? Yeah, that deer track is for the animals. It's not for the bikes. It's not for people. In that nature reserve? Yes. So there you go, folks. Some key words there from Kate. Now, as we keep returning to throughout this video, the message is where you can ride and what you can dig and create does vary worldwide. But Dawn, here in the Forest of Dean, what are the rules when it comes to digging trails? Well, it's one simple rule. It's don't do it unless you've got permission. So obviously we do give permissions to certain groups like the Dean Trail volunteers that we've got here that do some great work in terms of maintaining and helping us with the trails, but otherwise it's not permitted. It breaks our bylaws, it's criminal damage, and you could actually be prosecuted for it. Right, okay. So there you go, folks. The message here is, us as mountain bikers need to create a sustainable future, and it's just about making mountain biking a good sport, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. And as Forestry England, we want to support mountain biking, but it has to be done sustainably and it has to be done within the context of the environment and making sure that we, keep these places special and beautiful, but also are able to enjoy the trails that they have to offer. Great, so thanks for joining us, Dawn. It's a massive subject. Obviously, we're in a tiny little place here in the Forest of Dean, and even that is complex. But please get involved. We're really eager to get some feedback on, especially what it's like for mountain bikers in different places worldwide, whether it comes to down to trail building, trail riding, you name it, please get in touch and get involved in this conversation. I'm sure it'll be quite involved, the subject, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely. more discussion to be had.
Yeah, for sure. But guys, let us know your thoughts.